Friends, welcome to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It's not difficult for you, but it's nice for me. And we're starting. Alvin Woods stood impatiently in the airport arrivals hall, waiting for Morgan, his wife of 21 years. She flew to Vancouver, Canada with her best friend and one of her colleagues to see some 18-year-old pop singer that Alvin had never heard of. Morgan begged him to let her go. It was only for a couple of days, and besides, both Lana and Kirsty were married. Besides, in all their time together, Morgan had never given Alvin a reason to doubt her loyalty. She was 5 and 10 years older than her companions and was the unofficial leader of the group. Alvin knew that the other husbands, who were also waiting for the women, were counting on Morgan to keep their wives out of trouble during the trip. Alvin smiled from ear to ear when he saw his beautiful wife coming down the escalator. The 5'6", 168 centimeters natural blonde looked stunning as always in a tank top and tight jeans, showing off her slender figure, which she worked hard to maintain. She definitely didn't look like the mother of an 18-year-old young man who was in college. However, there was something in Morgan's expression that bothered him. She looked very worried, as did Lana. Kirsty, Morgan's colleague, who was the youngest in the group, looked completely relaxed and pleased. She whispered something briefly in Morgan's ear, which made Alvin's wife perk up and look happy too. Alvin ran up to his wife, hugged her tightly and kissed her, touching tongues for a moment. "Oh, baby, I've missed you." "Me too." Morgan squeezed him back tightly and whispered in his ear, "Take me home, my love, and I'll show you how much." The trip from the airport was awkward. Morgan didn't give more than 1 or 2 answers to Alvin's questions about the concert and the trip. "How was the concert?" "Great." "Was it good to relax with the girls?" "Not bad." "What did you do besides going to the concert?" "Nothing special." Alvin suspected that something was wrong, but decided to wait until they were at home. After carrying her suitcase into the bedroom, he was about to say something when Morgan suddenly appeared out of nowhere and hugged him in her panties. She began to kiss him insistently, at the same time pulling off his clothes. Despite the fact that they had always had a pretty healthy life, Morgan liked to play the prude and let Alvin be the instigator, even when it was obvious that she was horny. "Oh my God," Alvin moaned, caressing his wife's long golden hair tied in a ponytail with his hand. Alvin hadn't had such a treat in years. "Baby, I'm getting close," Alvin warned her, which was usually the signal to switch, and he would have done the same. Instead of stopping, she grabbed both of his buttocks and moved even faster, taking him deeper into her mouth than ever before. "Oh my God," Alvin wheezed. A few minutes later, Morgan jumped up, pulled her panties down to her knees and leaned over the edge of the bed. "Use me, baby. Use me hard." Even when they were making quick love, when their son Kevin was still at home, Alvin always needed to caress her with his fingers a little for foreplay. "Don't use your fingers, just stick them in me," Morgan said almost impatiently. Alvin, wanting to oblige, took hold of his trunk and effortlessly inserted it into her. "Yes, use me, baby. I'm so turned on missing you," Morgan moaned. Alvin spread her buttocks. He moistened his finger in his mouth and began to tease her bud. "Yes, I like it." Morgan sighed. "Put it in, Al. Put your finger in my ass." Since they were each other's first love back in high school, Alvin tried several times over the years to persuade Morgan to go further in their games. Now she herself, without his prompting, asked him to run his finger along her ass. Despite the fact that Alvin felt alarm bells in connection with such a change in behavior, he was not going to refuse her this request. He rocked gently, pressing against her hole, until the tip of his finger began to enter inside. Morgan let out a sigh that was more pleasure than pain, and he slowly entered her ass. He started to pull his finger out when she jerked slightly and let out a scream. Alvin reacted by pulling it all the way out. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Don't worry, I was just too dry, it doesn't hurt that much," Morgan said. "Take the lube from my bedside table." "What?" Alvin stopped moving. "I'm not going anywhere, Elle." "Lube," she repeated. Alvin went out, but she remained in the same position. He opened the bedside table where her few toys were and took KY. Returning to her from behind, he poured some on her ass and then on the finger that had just been inside her. "Please me first, lover," Morgan purred. Alvin took her hip with one hand and entered her again. He began to move slowly, stroking the edge of her starfish, and then probing it with the tip of his finger. This time, his finger slid into her ass with much less resistance, and Morgan sighed with pleasure. Yes, love me in all places at the same time. It's so nice. Damn, why didn't we try this many years ago? She squealed between gasps of pleasure. Yes, baby. Use me. Use me hard. For the first time, caressing her ass and hearing her dirty talk was too much for Alvin, and he felt himself exploding inside her with a sigh. Don't stop. I'm getting close. So close. Morgan reached back. Keep doing the same for me. After catching his breath, Alvin went to the bathroom to clean himself up. He heard Morgan pulling the covers off the bed. He walked past her as she followed him into the bathroom and closed the door. Alvin got dressed and went downstairs to make tea for his wife. 20 minutes later, Morgan joined him in the kitchen, and a strange expression appeared on her face again. Still high on the incredible experience, Alvin decided to hold off on asking what had caused such a change in his wife. He trusted her completely, and decided that they went to a men's strip club or something like that. Considering that he sometimes went to such clubs with boys, if Morgan was guilty of something like this, it was completely in vain. I love you very much, you know, Morgan said with a big smile, kissing him on the cheek and taking her tea from his hands. I love you too, Morgie. Alvin smiled broadly and without thinking added, And what led to this? Are you sure you girls behaved well? He was referring, of course, to going to a male striptease and was going to assure her that he didn't mind if she watched, but just don't touch. However, Morgan's eyes widened. She turned and ran into the bathroom, slamming the door. Morgs? Alvin said calmly, feeling slightly sick. He could hear her crying loudly behind the closed door. Please come out. We need to talk about this. He asked her again, counting in his head at the same time to cool down. She couldn't be lying, he told himself. Alvin was about to give up when the door opened and Morgan looked at him with red eyes and a running nose. I'm so sorry, I really screwed up. I'm sorry. She ran up and hugged Alvin, and he, without hesitation, hugged her back. Alvin took a deep breath. Did you make love to someone else during your trip? Morgan released him and looked offended by the question. Of course not. How could you think that? Although I screwed up pretty badly. All of us, especially Kirsty. Okay, tell me, what happened? Morgan shook her head. I shouldn't tell you. I mean, it's going to kill Wade. Wade was Kirsty's husband. Alvin reached the limit and pointed angrily at her with his finger. Either you tell me what the hell happened or I leave after I tell the other two husbands they'd better talk to their wives. Okay, please calm down, Morgan sobbed. It's not as bad as you think, at least for me. I promise. Let's go sit in the living room. Alvin sat down in an armchair, and Morgan sat on the sofa opposite him, holding a cup of tea in her hands. I'll tell you everything, but please keep this between us, okay? I don't want to offend anyone or ruin a marriage. Promise me. Alvin snorted. The only thing I promise is that if you don't tell me, our marriage may be ruined. What the hell happened in Vancouver? Morgan frowned, her eyes watering as they talked. There were 3 guys a little younger than Kirsty sitting behind us. They flirted with us before the show started. We ignored them, but then they bought beer for us girls. By the end of the show, all 6 of us were having a lot of fun. We danced and joked. I mean, it was innocent. Hell, I could have been their mother if I'd given birth at 15. Innocently? Alvin asked coldly. Well, it was like that for me and mostly for Lana. Kirsty was overstepping her bounds, and I was constantly warning her. Anyway, they invited us to dance after the show. Kirsty said yes, and I said no. I called us a taxi, and we returned to the hotel. When we entered the room, Kirsty took out a joint that one of the guys gave her. Weed is allowed in Canada. The 2 of them started smoking it, or I think it's called talking, and teased me until I tried it too. We were high, except for Kirsty, who was drunk and high and giggling like teenagers at a sleepover. Then there was a knock on the door. Kirsty told the guys where we were staying, and they came with even more booze and weed. Alvin felt his face tighten as Morgan paused and looked at him with a worried look. He asked, What happened next? After we had some fun with them, Kirsty and the one she was flirting with all night started kissing, and before we knew it, they were making love right in front of our eyes. Morgan shrugged. I'm sorry, but I couldn't help but look. Kirsty has such a perfect body. She was doing with her mouth what I was just doing with you. So you want me to believe that you and Lana, stoned and drunk in the presence of 2 more horny guys, watched Kirsty make love and nothing else happened? Alvin spat out the last 3 words. Morgan looked down. No, I let him go a little further than second base, but then I stopped him, I swear. Lana let hers go a little further, to the third. As soon as Kirsty finished, I kicked all the guys out and we all cried a lot for what we had done. Al, I know what I did was wrong, but please tell me we can work this out. Nothing like this has ever happened before and I promise it will never happen again. Alvin got up and walked away from her. Morgan started crying and reached for his hand. Please don't leave. You won't leave me, will you? Alvin pulled away. No, I'm not leaving you, but I'm damn angry. I can't believe you could do this to me. I think I need time to cool down and think. He left her crying, went out the front door and got into his pickup truck. He checked the time. It was darts night at Woolly Lamb, so he expected a few of his friends to be there. He would have been there anyway if it hadn't been for Morgan returning from a trip. Of course, Mark and Grant were there and playing darts. Alvin refused their offer to join the game and just sat silently drinking beer. After the fourth beer, Mark managed to get Alvin to tell him what was going on. Morgan and her friends got high and were fooling around with some young guys in their room. Alvin knew that both of his friends knew at least 2 other husbands, so he withheld some details. Mrs. Morgan doesn't even drink? Damn, Mark said sympathetically. Were you fooling around? Did you suck someone off or just kiss them? Grant asked. Alvin gave him a piercing look and said, Morgan said she only let him get to second base, and I believe her. After so many years of living together, I would understand if she was lying. Damn, 10 years ago at a New Year's Eve party, I got drunk, kissed Tim's wife, and grabbed her ass. It wasn't much worse, but still. Did she say they all ended up at second base? Mark said with a gloomy look. Alvin wasn't going to inform, so he lied. Morgan said they went a little further than second base, but then they stopped. I can't believe you're so calm about this. Mark shook his head. Alvin raised an eyebrow. Why? Yes, they kissed, and he felt her breasts through her tank top, and she always wears a bra. A little higher, so he was probably trying to climb into it. Mark laughed coldly. I forgot that you're almost a boomer. Al, these are the rules of baseball of your generation. Given that Morgan interacts with younger women, I'm sure she was referring to the new rules. New rules? Grant nodded. Yes, in case you lived under a rock, people are much more liberated now, and the new rules reflect this. Okay, what are these new rules? Alvin frowned, not knowing if his friends were trying to mislead him or not. Grant certainly tried, but Mark wouldn't talk about something that serious. Mark took out his phone and typed in a search engine. Okay, what we used to know as second base, groping over clothes, has now become first base. Kissing is a warm-up. The second base is the sensations under the clothes. It is debatable whether fingers count, but rubbing or handwork counts. Handmade, Alvin exclaimed. Then what about third base? Again, it's debatable. Alvin grabbed Mark's phone. You must be kidding me. Mark let him take the phone. After scrolling through it a bit, Alvin saw that his words were true. Alvin swallowed and looked at his 2 friends. So what do you think a little further than second base means? Mark patted Alvin on the shoulder. I'm sorry, Al, I think that means that one or both of them probably brought the matter to an end at the hands of other guys, and everything stopped right before passionate love, unless that happened. Alvin was almost trembling. He saw that Morgan had texted and was ready to drop his phone. He was clutching it so tightly after blocking her number that his hand turned red. Maybe Morgan was referring to the old rules? Grant said, I think the point is that you need to talk to her and figure it out like Mark said. No, these are new rules, said Alvin through clenched teeth. This cheating Kirsty invited guys to her room and used one right in front of the others. Morgan admitted that watching them made her very excited. It's logical that they went at least so far as to excite each other. Mark said calmly, Talk to her. Call a taxi and go home. Alvin nodded and called a taxi. However, not wanting to go home, he dropped off at the Starlight Motel and rented a room. In the store opposite, he bought a bottle of whiskey and continued to drink, trying to figure out what to do. Drunk, Alvin decided that he needed more information before making any decisions about Morgan. He had Kirsty and Wade's number, which he had received 6 months earlier when he and Lana were planning to surprise Morgan on her 40th birthday. He texted Kirsty, I know what you did, you fucking cheater. If you don't want me to tell your husband, I'll meet you at the Starlight Motel, room 40. Her immediate reaction was, Is that Al? I don't understand what you're talking about. Alvin snorted and replied, I know all about your little toy boy and how you put on a show. A minute later, she sent, "Give me 20 minutes." It was already close to 40 when Alvin heard a knock. He opened it, and Kirsty appeared in front of him in sweatpants and an old t-shirt. The stunning, tall, red-haired girl had smudged makeup and bloodshot eyes. She still looked like she could walk the runway as a model. "Alvin, please don't do this. You're not that kind of guy." "Don't do this to Morgie," Kirsty pleaded as soon as the door closed behind her. "Do you think I'm blackmailing you with love? I rented this room so I wouldn't go home drunk and say something to Morgan that I'd regret because of you. I just want to know the fucking truth. I know what you did. I want to know about Lana and my wife." "I don't know for sure, I swear. I was so damn drunk." Kirsty shook her head, her eyes watering. "You couldn't have been so drunk that you didn't notice anything." Alvin crossed his arms. "That's what I know. You invited the guys, drank and smoked weed, started kissing one of them, and out of the blue started making love to him in front of the others who were just talking. I need you to tell me what happened next. Or do I need to talk to Wade to clear up your memory?" Okay. Kirsty held out her hands to surrender. The other four definitely had kisses. Lana lost her skirt and it seems her bra before Morgie kicked them out. "What about my wife?" Kirsty shrugged her shoulders. "She was wearing that dress. I do not know what he did to her, but he often touched her feet." "Could he have touched her with his fingers?" A nod. "That's all I can say about that night. Is that enough? Please, if you tell Wade, it will kill him and then he will leave me. Please, Al, it was just one time for all of us." Kirsty clasped her hands pleadingly. Alvin couldn't get the image of some young male holding his wife's head down to please him out of his head. No wonder she swallowed like a pro. The alcohol that got into his system did not help him calm down. "No, we're not doing well. You almost ruined my marriage along with your own just to get some weirdness. I deserve a fucking reckoning." Kirsty's eyes widened. "Please, no. Using me won't fix anything, and Morgie will be heartbroken. Please, Al, you're drunk." "I'm not you," Alvin spat out. "I want you all to tell your husbands the truth. Apologize profusely and spoil our mood. You plan to hide it together. You can plan to confess and fix it together." Kirsty's eyes widened. "Are you crazy? I can't do this. Wade will leave me." "If he does, he will. It's best if he knows the truth," Alvin snorted. "I saw you whispering to Morgan at the airport. It was your idea to lie, so be the first one to be damn honest. If you don't want to risk losing your man, you should keep your legs closed. Tell him, or I'll do it." "Come on, Alvin, anything but that. The truth will just hurt him, just like the truth about Morgan hurts you." Kirsty was crying with her hands clasped. "Please, Al, punish me, but don't punish Wade. Don't drag him into this." Alvin rolled his eyes. "And how do you suggest I punish you? Spank your ass?" Kirsty wiped her eyes and smiled. "Maybe not to spank. There are other ways to punish me for such disobedience in front of your wife. Maybe you can smooth things over a little bit. Calm your mind and keep this between us. Have fun and pretend that nothing happened. You don't know anything about what happened in that hotel room." If he had been sober, Alvin would have just thrown her out of the room. However, drunk Alvin began to think that maybe he deserved a little revenge. Of course, he wouldn't go too far. Maybe he would just feel those beautiful, firm breasts. "Maybe I could agree to that." Kirsty smiled and pulled off her sweatpants, revealing a thick red triangular bush. "I think this will be the beginning. This is just one time. I will never cheat on my husband again." Alvin admired her pale, naked lower half with long, thin legs and allowed his gaze to focus on the smooth, pink lips under her pubic hair and on her ass. His self-control was gone. Alvin got down on his knees. "You got to second base." Kirsty gasped as Alvin kissed her folds. "Oh, shit. You really know what you're doing?" From Kirsty's breathing and hip movements, Alvin realized that she was probably already close. As he liked to do with Morgan sometimes, he started kissing the inside of her thighs. Kirsty made an offended sound and shifted her hips. Alvin chuckled and ran his finger along her slit, noticing that she was much freer than his wife. "Stop teasing, you bastard," Kirsty panted. Alvin pulled out his finger and inserted it into her other hole. She also didn't mind him penetrating her, using only her juices as lubricant. "Stop and pull it out. I need you to use me, please," Kirsty purred. "Use me until I finish the job." "I want you." Alvin stopped and stood up. Kirsty looked at him with a grin, pulling up her t-shirt and exposing her small elastic breasts. "Yes, please use me, and you will take revenge on your naughty wife." At the mention of wife, Alvin realized the true reason for his stay in this hotel room. He looked at Kirsty, and instead of a gentle red-haired girl who wanted to use him, he saw an insidious cheater who was the cause of problems in his marriage. He felt all his anger returning, both at Kirsty and at Morgan. Alvin growled, "No, you can go far away from me, you fool." "What? You have to kill me," Kirsty whined. "The room is paid for. I'm sure a cheater like you will find someone who will do it for you." "I'm sorry, I have to go home and tell Morgan that we're even," Alvin said, leaving the room while Kirsty cursed loudly at him. Alvin decided that he wanted to meet his wife after all, and called a taxi. It was well past 2 when he was dropped off at the house. He saw that all the lights were on and was glad that he wouldn't have to wake Morgan up. When he entered the house, he saw her in a housecoat, looking as if she had been crying the whole time he was gone. "Alvin Woods, you're a jerk. I was worried to death. You blocked my messages and calls. I had no idea if you were coming home. And now you come stumbling drunk in the middle of the night," she said, standing up as tears ran down her cheeks. "I know you're angry, but I'm still your wife." "I know," Alvin said irritably. "I needed time to think about it." He looked at how angry Morgan was and thought she had strong nerves when it happened. He was going to wash up and then meet her face to face, keeping what had happened to Kirsty a secret. However, being still half drunk, her behavior made him mad again. If she wants to be angry, he will give her a reason to be angry. When Morgan came over to hug him, Alvin surprised her by lowering his head and kissing her hard. She opened her mouth at first, but very quickly closed her lips and tried to pull her head away, but Alvin held her by the back of her head to prolong the kiss. He released her when she bit his lip. He released her, rubbed his lower lip, which seemed about to bleed, and stared at her. Morgan gave him a look full of hatred that he had never seen from anyone in all the years of their life together. Her eyes narrowed and her lips curled as she growled, "What the hell did you do?" "Who is she?" Alvin feigned surprise. "Oh, I don't understand what you mean, dear. I just got a little drunk and ended up going a little further than second base, just like you." "You did some fucking shit," Morgan cried. "Did you go and make love to someone after what I did?" "No, I've equalized everything and it doesn't matter who it was. Unless you want to tell me who you were with so I can rip that bastard's balls off," Alvin shouted back. "Oh, you want to even the odds," Morgan said irritably. "Grant is still single, right? Call him. I'll suck him off and let you kiss me with a mouthful of his liquid. This makes everything even." "I think you're a big enough cheater to do this," Alvin said, rolling his eyes. "You're just mad that I'm not stupid enough not to know that the rules have changed." "What are the rules? For a divorce? I'm pretty sure loud love is still considered fucking adultery." Morgan put her hands on her hips. "No, love is according to the rules of baseball." Alvin imitated her voice. "He only got as far as second base, maybe a little further." "He did. What are you talking about?" Morgan was no longer screaming and looked either worried or confused. "You thought I didn't know that the rules of baseball had changed. The second base is no longer the second base that was at school." Alvin said it in a "yeah, gotcha" tone. "Who said that? This is complete shit," she snapped. "A lot of people, including Kirsty," Alvin said. Morgan's eyes widened. "This fool. Was Kirsty trying to use you? I'm going to kill her." She turned and headed for the bedroom. Alvin followed her. When Morgan took off her robe and put on jeans, he said, "Stop pretending. I know you meant the new rules. Kirsty already told me." "How would she know?" Morgan snapped, crying. "Her ass was facing us and she threw up in the bathroom right after that while I was kicking the guys out. She didn't see a damn thing. How could you do this to her?" Alvin rolled his eyes again. "Do you still expect me to believe that he was just lightly groping you all night while your friend was playing star in front of you?" "Yes, because that's exactly what happened," Morgan said, still crying. "We kissed while he felt my breasts through my clothes. We stopped kissing while I was watching Kirsty and the other guy, and I spanked his hand when he tried to touch my chest again. He put his hand on my knee and tried to get under my dress, and I slapped him. Lana's boyfriend got under her blouse and probably under her bra, but she stopped her boyfriend at about the same time that I slapped mine. As I said, one guy ended up on second base with me, and the other one ended up on third base with Lana. That's what happened. Now tell me what you did." Alvin reluctantly told everything that had happened between him and Kirsty. Surprisingly, Morgan sat on the edge of the bed and listened calmly. When he finished, she closed her eyes and shook her head. "That fucking fool. After this trip, I already planned to distance myself from her. She's not worth going to jail for, but I'll tell her to get another job or I'll tell Wade what she did. Alvin sighed and took out his phone. He did a quick search in the browser and then handed her the phone. Morgan's eyebrows went up as she read. This is just ridiculous. I was already upset about what I'd done, and did you really think I'd completely cheated? Why didn't you ask me? I would have told you. I didn't go into details because I was ashamed and still am. To know that you thought so badly of me and did it with another woman. After more than 20 years of marriage, do you trust me so little? Do you have any idea how much it hurts? I'm sorry I can't be near you, and no, I'm not running away to make love to one of your friends. I'll sleep in Kevin's room, just leave me alone. Alvin watched her leave and slammed the door behind her. He felt like a complete shit, and not just because he was starting to sober up. A complete deception, that's what he did, not her. Mark told him to go home and talk to her, but no, he had to fix everything. The next day was Sunday, and the sound of Morgan's vacuum cleaner woke Alvin up. He came out of his room in his underpants. Morgan looked through him as if he wasn't there. Good morning. Listen, Alvin began, but Morgan turned and carried the vacuum cleaner into the next room. For the rest of the day, she acted as if Alvin was invisible, and left as soon as he uttered a word in her direction. If he was quiet, she stayed in the same room but didn't even blink in his direction. When it was time for dinner, Alvin was surprised that she set the table for two and cooked baked salmon, which was one of his favorite dishes. Alvin sat and ate, glancing at his wife, who deliberately avoided his gaze with an expression that could only be described as cold. After finishing half of the portion, Alvin turned around and said, Morgie, this is very tasty, even for you. Thank you for cooking this. You're welcome, came a sudden even reply from Morgan, who was still facing the wall, although her eyes still slid away. Can you at least let me apologize? I jumped to conclusions and really screwed up. You made a big mistake, and then I screwed up. I'm really sorry that I thought that way about you. And what I did to Kirsty was mean. I was drunk and angry and would never have done anything like this when sober. I refused to make love to her when she was trying very hard to seduce me. That means something, doesn't it? Morgie, what I'm trying to say is that I've been much worse off than you, and I'm probably as mad at myself as you are. Tell me how to fix it. I love you and I don't want to lose you. Morgan's lip twitched. I almost left last night. I was going to pack my suitcase and never look back. I know I made a terrible mistake. You should have seen how terrible I felt. But what you did was much more than what I did. It was mean and deliberate. I love you and I don't want to lose you, but I can't just forget last night. What are you talking about? Do you want payback now? Alvin asked an honest question, although he felt a little uncomfortable at the thought of it, like when he thought that Morgan had gone much further than she hinted. No, I don't think so. Maybe. Morgan shrugged and looked at him. I don't want to hurt you, but I think you really owe me. A consultation? Should I buy a new car? I do not know what will make the situation better. Forgive me and tell me that you trust me. It would help. Alvin reached for her hand. I really forgive you. And I was ready to try to forgive you last night, thinking the worst. I love you. Let me wash the dishes, and can you go relax and watch TV? Would that be a good start? Morgan smiled for the first time all day. It's a very good start, especially if you add a foot massage to it when you're done. Agreed. I love you, Alvin said, and bent down to kiss his wife briefly. They spent the rest of the meal making small talk, looking at each other's faces again. When they were done, Morgan poured herself a glass of wine and left Alvin to clean up. Alvin had just started washing the dishes when the phone rang. He looked and saw that it was Mark. Alvin cursed softly, remembering that he hadn't contacted his friends to tell them how last night had gone. Or hadn't. He quickly wiped his hands and answered. Hello? Alvin replied. Damn, Al. Thank God you picked up the phone, Mark said, speaking very quickly in an agitated but at the same time nervous tone. I don't know how last night went, but you need to hear this. Do you know Dally from my job? He lives next door to the Winters, you know, Lana and Roger. Yes, I know that they are neighbors. So thin walls and all that, he just heard loud screams, after which Roger went outside to smoke. Well, as you know, Dally, he went there to find out what was going on. I was damn right. She admitted that she went to third base yesterday, and that's what she really meant. Alvin almost dropped the phone into the dishwashing water. It can't be. Yes, it is. Lana confessed everything, and Roger went to clear his head before dealing with it. From what Roger told Dally, it was some crazy shit. All three women were completely naked after playing strip poker with three guys and had a male pleasantry contest, with all three pleasuring different guys at the same time. One couple started making love, and the other switched to her lying on her back while he sucked her off. Roger was circumcised, and the guys didn't have condoms, so Lana let the guy make love on the bed instead, next to the one they were sucking off. When this couple began to prepare for love, the guy began to vilify her husband, calling him cook and all that. It was enough to make her scared and furious, kicking all the guys out of the room. The other two have already shot back anyway. They swore to keep everything a secret, although Lana and I suppose Morgan were embarrassed to lie, so the one they used came up with this baseball trick and the fact that their husbands hardly know the updated terms. That way they could honestly confess without ruining their marriages. Are you sure about this? Was Dally kidding you? Alvin felt his face burn. Damn, he called me right after Roger came back to the house to yell some more. I heard Dally on the phone calling her a cheater and all that. I'm so sorry, Elle. Alvin took a couple of deep breaths. I have to go, Mark. While. As soon as he hung up, Morgan came into the kitchen with an almost white face, clutching the phone in her hands. She had a forced smile, but her eyes were full of fear. Alvin counted in his mind, trying to keep calm. He was more afraid of losing his temper and hurting her than he was of yelling. He had never been remotely close to hitting a woman in his life, but he had never been so angry at anyone before. I take it you just heard from Lana? Her expression confirmed everything Mark had told him. Oh my God, did Roger call you? Alvin snorted. No, this is Mark. He works with Bob Dally, your friend's neighbor. Morgan began to cry. Please, we all drank and everything got out of control. It was one fucking mistake one night, but I didn't have love, I swear. Please, I'm so sorry. After more than 20 years of living together, as you pointed out to me last night, how about you tell me the fucking truth? Alvin said in a forced calm voice. Tell me how you ended up lying naked on a bed and were going to use some stranger while your girlfriends were stuffed before you chickened out at the last moment. Please, Alvin, it wasn't like that. I wasn't going to make love to him at all. Never, I swear. Morgan sobbed, collapsing into a chair at the table. You didn't have intercourse, but you damn well made love, Alvin said coldly, trying to control his emotions. Or have you already forgotten that loud love is considered adultery? I freaked out like hell, okay? I was so worried I was going to lose you that I was desperate, Morgan said between loud sobs. If you promise not to run away from me anymore, I'll tell you everything. I swear it. After the way you've been treating me the last couple of days, I can't promise a damn thing. Speak. It took Morgan a few minutes to calm down enough to speak. Indeed, everything happened as I said. We were smoking a joint when the guys came with bottles of booze and a large hookah. Kirsty used the same phrase as before when she was trying to persuade me to try weed. She called me Mrs. Prude and said she was sorry for you for being married to such a prim bore. You know, usually people saying things like that don't bother me. But that night it happened for some reason. I tried to act relaxed and keep up with everyone who was drinking and smoking to prove that Kirsty was wrong. Alvin was counting in his head. Everything she said sounded convincing, but he also thought she was telling the truth about moving to second base, insisting that these were the old rules. After living together for so long, it seemed to him that he knew her well enough to know when she was lying. Morgan paused to take out a napkin and wipe her cheeks, then continued. I was so drunk that I don't remember all the small details, only that I kept making terrible decision after terrible decision. We were playing poker. The loser drank first, and I was sure that one guy was cheating because it was only us girls who were losing. I tried to tell him off, but Kirsty looked at me like a prude and persuaded me to play strip poker. I am. I felt so young, proving that I could keep up with Kirsty and these young guys, that I just agreed. They had lost their shirts, and maybe one was only wearing boxers, while all three of us were completely naked. The guys kept complimenting us, looking at us. I felt like a fool, and I liked it. Once again, Kirsty persuaded me to agree to some stupid bet. If we won, we got dressed, and the guys had to go to the hotel. If we were losing, we... Will you suck them all off? Alvin said coldly, crossing his arms. Morgan closed her tear-stained eyes, nodding. My brain was on autopilot. I knew I was overstepping the mark, but at that moment I didn't care. I remember how I did it and how terrible it tasted, but I don't remember why I did it knowing that I was cheating on you. As soon as I finished, I went to the bathroom and threw up. When I came out, I just wanted to lie down. My legs were wobbly. I collapsed onto the bed next to the bathroom and turned to see both of my friends on all fours being used from behind. From everything that was happening and from what was in my body, I got so excited and just looked at both of them. I've already talked about Kirsty, but Lana's boyfriend was slowly entering her ass, and I could see it clearly. They both did it in front of my eyes, and it was so erotic that when I felt my hands and warm mouth between my legs, I just spread them apart. Alvin stood up and couldn't look at her. Please, I didn't plan and didn't want this to happen. I wasn't thinking at all. When he stopped and started climbing over me, it was as if my brain suddenly turned on. I told him that I couldn't and that I was married. He called me a cheater, said something about you and that he could say that I need good love. I slapped him hard in the face and flew into a rage. The guy with Lana said something and I hit him too. I think Lana kind of came to her senses then too, and helped me chase all the guys away, even though Kirsty was mad at us. Morgan waved her hands and burst into tears again. I felt so bad inside I was going to tell you everything, but Lana and Kirsty convinced me that this would be the end of all our marriages. I told the girls that I was a terrible liar and I couldn't hide anything like that from you. It would eat me up inside. Kirsty suggested telling the truth, but not the whole story using baseball terms and hanging out, so that you don't actually lie but also don't say anything. It was all a huge mistake, and I'm sorry. But you know me. You know that I love you, and I would never have done anything if only I hadn't let Kirsty convince me to screw up. Like you know, I would never even kiss that bitch Kirsty on the cheek if I wasn't on edge, Alvin countered. And that's why you climbed up on the fucking podium, knowing full well that you don't have as high moral principles as you pretended. Of course I was mad as hell. You almost used my friend and literally poked me in the face, Morgan defended herself. You cheated on purpose, but I didn't. At least I didn't run away. You should know that after more than 20 years of marriage, Alvin said, disappointed. Morgan, do you even understand why I'm so upset about this? She nodded. I let myself lose control of myself, made loud love and cheated on you, and I'm really sorry that it happened. But it will never happen again, I swear. Please, we can get through this. I'm ready to forget about what you did if you do the same. Alvin sighed and sat down opposite his wife. He had been with her longer than he had been without her in his life. This made the situation much more difficult. Morgan, I know you're not a drinker, and when I thought about the worst thing you could have done, and it was very close to what really happened, I planned to forgive you and try to move on. Considering my actions last night, I would be a hypocrite if I didn't try to forgive your actions that night. Morgan started crying again and reached for his hand. Oh, Al, thank you. I'll make it up to you, I swear. I'm not done yet, Alvin said, pulling his hand away. I won't lie, cheating hurts. That's how I know that what I did hurt you. However, that's not why I'm so upset. This is a lie and disrespect. It was right that you confessed to me. You used to be a terrible liar and you looked so guilty that I knew it right away. But in the last 2 days, you lied to me twice so convincingly that I was absolutely sure that all that happened was just kissing when he groped your breasts through your dress and bra. And the only time I did it, you did it knowing full well that I was going to feel like shit for messing with Kirsty. Damn, I practically humiliated myself to make it up to you. Alvin shook his head. For someone who used to hate lying, you quickly became damn good at it. Al, I told you why, Morgan pleaded. I was so afraid of losing you. I thought the truth would ruin our marriage. No, it was a lie, Alvin said decisively. Damn it, Morgan. If you had told me the truth even last night when I got home, I think I could have forgiven the first lie, which, as you said, was more of a lie of omission. You lied so heartlessly about all the events, and I don't think you even feel guilty about it, because it was done to save our marriage. Really? Morgan didn't answer. Alvin rolled his eyes. How the hell can I trust you? Knowing after all these years how convincingly you can deceive me. Can you promise that if you lose your way again, you'll tell me the truth about it? Morgan began and looked upset. That's an unfair question because I'm not going to lose my way anymore. Alvin shook his head. In other words, no. You see, even if I forgive you for cheating, I won't be able to forgive you for lying. I love you more than anything in the world, but I no longer believe that you will be honest with me. I can't stay married to a woman I don't trust. I lied because I wanted to spare your feelings because I love you and I thought you loved me the same way, Morgan screamed, still crying. Would you leave me because of that? Now you're just lying to yourself. I'm sorry, I've had enough. Alvin frowned and stood up. It's a good thing Kevin isn't here yet. I'll probably stay with Grant until we sell the house and split everything up. I hope your one stormy night was worth it. Goodbye, Morgan.